Ladies and gentlemen, you may have your attention, please. The program will begin in 5 minutes. At this time, please move to your seats and help us start on schedule. As a reminder, please silence your electronic devices and leave them on so you can text or email your questions for our guest speakers to the address on the screen, askmetna@gmail.com.
adapting to change for over 150 years. Now, we're driving the next evolution, where networks meet cloud, alive with intelligence, enabling people, machines, and devices to interact in real time like never before, and making high-performance connectivity more consumable, adaptable, autonomous, open to innovation, to collaboration, networks that sense, think, and act. Because by working together with service providers, enterprises, and the world, we can create a more sustainable, productive, accessible future by accelerating the impact of digital to reach people, places, and industries that have never been reached before. That demands more than change. That demands transformation. For us, that means pushing further with a clear vision and a new logo that symbolizes our purpose. Because it's only when all the right pieces act together that brilliance happens. The precision of tech leadership, the dynamism of a new digital era, and the kaleidoscopic colors of innovation. This is Nokia, but not as the world has seen us before. We've always connected people. Now, we create technology that helps the world act together.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the AFCEA TechNet Augusta International Military and Collegiate Capture the Flag Award presentation. Today, over 30 teams participated from 8 countries, including Canada, Germany, Italy, Japan, Malaysia, Netherlands, Qatar, and the United States, highlighting the skills, resiliency, and achievements from various military and collegiate cyber teams from around the world. 14 teams participated in person at the Georgia Cyber Center from the U.S., Qatar, the Netherlands, and Italy. Qatar sent 5 teams to participate at the Georgia Cyber Center and took all 3 of the top in-person places. The event today provided scenario-based Jeopardy-style CTF exercises that assist our government partners and aspiring cyber professionals with learning new skills, providing hands-on experience with cybersecurity, and helps them sharpen the tools they have learned during their training. Parsons provided 60 Jeopardy-style questions across 10 topics: networking, web, coding, network forensics, host forensics, reverse engineering, exploitation, enumeration, web-based services and applications, and cryptography via Parsons' custom-designed and modified scoreboard system that each team negotiated. Today, we will highlight the accomplishments of the best-performing teams. At this time, I would like to invite Major General Joanna Clybourne, Deputy Commanding General, U.S. Army Cyber Center of Excellence, to the stage to make opening comments.
So in the military, we like to use a lot of sports analogies, but the truth is cyber is the ultimate team sport. And I mean it. Partnerships and teamworks like this are a priority in the work that we do. This year, we had 30 teams from 8 countries, 6 collegiate, and 22 military complete in the challenge. These individuals didn't sign up to do this just because they had to. They did so because they were eager to learn, to challenge themselves, to challenge others in our field, to test their skills, and to find innovative solutions to complex problems. Because cyber, like I said, is a team sport. And it's not just a U.S. sport. It's an international partnership sport. These traits that these teams exuded are those of a big part of the reason why the cyber field is the home of the best and the brightest who participate because they see something greater and challenge greater than themselves. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome our teams for the awards presentation. Or maybe not. I'll just tap dance for a while.
We would like to thank those that helped us put together this event. From Parsons, Tom Barnes, Brian Yutzi, and Liz Cornejo. From the Cyber Center of Excellence, excuse me. From the Cyber Center of Excellence, Rochelle Thomas and Demita Davis. The co-sponsors for this event, BAE, DirectViz Solutions, ECS Tech, CSRA Alliance for Fort Gordon, Leidos, IOMAX, Sealing Tech, and Softac. At this time, we would like to invite the following personnel on stage to present the awards. Lieutenant General Susan S. Lawrence, USA retired, President and CEO of AFCEA. Mr. Tom Barnes, Parsons Vice President of Cyber Strategic Initiatives. Don DeSanto, BAE Director, DoD AI Cloud and Cyber Programs. Dr. Tom Clark, CSRA Alliance for Fort Gordon, Executive Director. John George Leidos, Strategic Account Executive. Tom Smith, IOMAXIS Chief Operations Officer. Scott Adkins, Sealing Tech Cybercom Business Development Account Manager. Marcus Reith, Softac. Now let's recognize the winners of today's event. Third place went to Team NightSec from the University of Central Florida in the USA. Is there nobody coming? They're remote. Oh, they're a remote team. Second place went to Team Brandon Bread from Army Cyber Defense Team in Germany. Lieutenant Colonel Sasha Blankenberg, CCOE German Liaison Officer, will accept the award.
Second and first. All right. We'll get a squirt away. Come on up.
Yep. First place went to Team Quiche Coders from German Cyber Defense Team, and Lieutenant Colonel Blankenberg will accept this award as well. Please provide one more round of applause for these winning competitors. This concludes the award presentation. Thank you for joining us, and we will begin the panel shortly. At this time, we invite the panelists to take their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Brigadier General Paul Friedenberg, U.S. Army retired, Executive Vice President of AFCEA International.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this session here, and another big round of applause and congratulations to the winners and all the participants in the Capture the Flag competition. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the recent and tragic loss of an Army leader many of us knew quite well. Former PEO C3T Major General Tony Potts. He began his career as an attack helicopter pilot before transitioning to the Acquisition Corps and eventually leading 2 program executive offices, PEO Soldier and PEO Command Control Communications Tactical. He just recently had departed PEO C3T in June, and the Army noted that he had postured the Army to deliver a data-centric, optimized network design for a division fighting formation that will support the Army of 2030. We're grateful for his contribution and for his service, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends. And we will honor him by continuing to build on that path that he had set to achieve a data-centric Army. Thank you very much. At this time, please welcome Mr. Mike Loomis, the General Manager at Nokia Federal Division, to the stage to introduce our panel moderator.
Thank you, and welcome to the joint PEO panel on the digital transformation empowering a data-centric Army. My name is Mike Loomis. I'm with Nokia. At Nokia, we are building the world's data mesh network, and we do that by supplying networking equipment and networking technology to telecommunications service providers. We're an innovator, and much of that technology was created at Nokia Bell Labs. We're a leader in 5G. 5G brings together the physical and digital worlds, and our mission at Nokia Federal is to enable that technology to provide the warfighter with mission-critical comms. I'm pleased to introduce the next session on behalf of FCA International. With great pleasure, I introduce the moderator of this panel and fellow 82nd Airborne alumni, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Besko. Lieutenant Colonel Besko is an academy professor in the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he currently serves in the Department of Systems Engineering. His research and interests focus on the application of data science in support of cyber intelligence and special operations problems. Thank you, Dave.
Sir, thank you. Thank you very much. As just said, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dave Besko. I'm joined up here from leaders across our acquisition and PEOs. Immediately to my left, Ms. Jennifer Swanson is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Data, Engineering, and Software at ASALT. Immediately to her left is Mr. Ross Gukert from PEO Enterprise Information Systems, or PEO EIS. Immediately to his left is Brigadier General Ed Barker from PEO Intelligence, Electronic Warfare, and Sensors, or PEO IEW&S. Immediately to his left is Mr. Mark Kitts from PEO Command Control Communications Tactical, or C3T. And immediately to his left is Ms. Karen Saunders from PEO Simulation, Training, and Instrumentation, or PEO STRI. Today, we're going to talk about how we develop, or the future of developing systems and technology for the Army. In parallel with that, we are developing the leaders that will use that. Today, 15 August, 700 miles north of here in the Hudson Valley of New York, the United States Military Academy is starting lesson number 1. Cadets are walking in the classroom for lesson number 1. For the class of 2027, which will graduate 4 years from now, most of them just graduated high school. They will go through a 47-month experience that will forge them into leaders of character that will then fall in across our branches on the technology and systems that we are about to discuss here. We are preparing them for those. So in parallel, we are developing those leaders and these systems here today. And so this is what we're going to tackle here today, is discussing some of those systems, particularly focused on data, AI, and other technologies. So to start out the panel, I'm going to ask Ms. Swanson a question near and dear to my heart. I just finished up as the DevSecOps and Data Science lead here at Army Cyber Command, and so critical to that is the software that underlies the technology today. So Ms. Swanson, could you just touch on the kind of future of modern technology, modern software development, and particularly the CI/CD that we're all trying to get after?
Yep, absolutely. So software drives all of our systems. There is really, I can't think of a system in the field or in the enterprise business area that isn't driven by software. And so being able to get to CI/CD is absolutely critical so that we can keep those systems updated and enable overmatch that way, because we don't know what our near peer adversaries are going to bring to the table. And so we need to be able to rapidly update our systems. So we are moving to CI/CD. It is an Army effort. I want to make that clear. It's not an ASALT thing alone. We cannot do it alone. So we're very fortunate that we have fantastic senior leadership under the Vice and the Secretary who have fully supported the changes that need to be made. So where we are today, AFC has moved out on modifying how they're writing software requirements. And that's a big deal because it all starts there. So from a requirements perspective, we're going to get high-level requirements documents, not like really 600-page, monolithic big requirements documents. And we will be able to then, AFC will team with FORCECOM operators to help us refine those requirements as we develop. So that's a big thing. Similar kinds, I'm not going to go through all of it, but similar kinds of changes in contracting, testing, and then a really big one, effective 1 October this year, we are no longer transitioning software to sustainment. So the PMs will keep the software that they have. If it hasn't already transitioned to AMC, it's not going to, because software is never done, right? So if we're going to continue adding capability, we need to have lifecycle manager under the PM. And so that is a big deal. From an industry perspective, what should you guys expect to see? So you've seen some RFPs in the past year that are requiring, actually all software RFPs that have come out and will come out are requiring not just evaluation of the solution, but also evaluation of the company to be agile. And that is critical because we can get shiny objects, but if we cannot maintain and keep those shiny objects updated with new requirements as those requirements evolve, then we're not really doing agile development. So that's a big change that you guys, I hope, are prepared for, and I'm happy to discuss more with you offline if you would like.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Guker, I want to transition on to build off of that. You've been talking for the last few months about Agile, moving to Agile. Could you just kind of go over that for everyone for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Very excited about the progress we're making. Industry has really been along for the ride and a key partner in that. And it's not just pockets of excellence, kind of across the board, we're seeing signs of how the transformation to Agile is truly taking effect. We've been holding monthly offsites with my leadership. We're looking at everything from contracting, establishing a lean, agile center of excellence within the headquarters, cost estimating, upscaling, and redefining how we use and define our tech services. The ASALT team has been phenomenal, as Ms. Swanson mentioned, in a number of these areas. So we're leveraging what she's doing, what Ms. Dake is doing, and Mr. Bang has been an excellent visionary for us, leading the way. One thing we're going to start is robust technical reviews, ensuring that we have an open modern architecture, code that's stable and data that's stable and high quality, and deliver the cyber tools to keep up with the emerging threats. And we're going to bring the system integrators in, we're going to bring our tech services in, and our OEMs as we do those reviews. With contracting, we're very excited about the Digital Contracting Center of Excellence that's being stood up at Aberdeen Proving Ground under Danielle Moyer, defining what an agile contracting package looks like, contract type, deliverables, payment structure, making sure we're paying for value in the delivery of capability, and how we leverage modular contracting, She's in the process of developing playbooks that we are helping her develop that will not just be used at Aberdeen, but across the contracting command enterprise. And we're also looking at acquisition lead times. We know that the current lead times we're seeing with some of these contracts are just untenable. And so she's also looking at how we apply Agile to the alts. We've been using OTAs and prototyping very effectively within our portfolio, so you'll continue to see those ongoing with future contracts. Upscaling has been very important in our portfolio. The PMs have been getting Agile training, whether it's through the Udemy training at ASALT or individual focus training within our individual PMOs. Ultimately, we're defining what the training is for every position within our portfolio and then letting our folks take that training at their own pace. You're seeing every PM in our organization organize around Agile, integrating with the SI, the tech services, and the functionals. It's really a new standard across EIS, and we're really grateful for industry and how they're helping us populate those teams. We're adding new leaders. The Deputy PEO has been on board for about 6 or 7 months now, Mr. Bill Hepworth. New CIO, Mike Chappell. New Assistant PEO back from Senior Service College, Rob Shady, and Eric Sherwood is going to head up our Lean Agile Center of Excellence at the headquarters. Tech services, I mentioned we're redefining our expectations for them. Critical in architecture and code stability, ensuring we have the right metrics and use of data science and data analytics to see trends, leveraging new tools with real-time data sources as we do our reviews, and in the absence of having a system integrator on board, really jumping in and starting to burn down that initial backlog while we potentially do a competition for an SI. So very powerful support for our PMs. We have a lot of success stories that are just piling up. Army contract writing system put out an MVP, first MVP last month. Ignited full operational capability we'll achieve this month. AIE MVP next month. EBSC prototype awards today. Taking an innovative approach to IPS-A and the future capabilities. ICAM onboarding occurring later this year. ATIS delivering initial capability early next year. And we're kicking off the ACES FMS program with the software acquisition pathway. And that's been my default across the portfolio to start with the software acquisition pathway. And even in the case where we're leveraging 5075, we're pivoting the software acquisition pathway. So I've been saying since by December we'll look like a completely different organization, and things are certainly shaping up to look that way.
Thank you, sir. To follow up on that, anytime we're doing change that big, and as Mr. Bang talked about this digital odyssey that we are on, there's at times, particularly in enterprises large as the Army, there's cultural barriers to that change. What cultural barriers are you facing, and how are you addressing those?
Yeah, so with any transformation, culture's going to fight you. And if you can show, though, example after example of successes of what the transformation is doing to the portfolio, I think people really start to buy in. So it's really powerful when you finally push IPS-A Release 3 out the door. It's really powerful when you finally deploy a new contract writing system to the Army. And it's really powerful when you inherit a failed software program and achieve FOC within 1 year. And it's powerful when the Army has a recruiting crisis and we restructure our program and deliver an MVP in a matter of months. So I've been impressed with how this organization has taken it and run with it. We couldn't have done it without our industry partners. I think we've accelerated through the crawl and the walk stages. And we're now, I think, in the run phases. So very excited about that. We've had record number of team members participate in our Lunch and Learn educational series, significant cross-portfolio sharing of lessons learned and best practices, and record numbers attending our training sessions. So our leaders and myself, we take every opportunity to talk about the transformation. The new leaders like the Deputy PEO, the CIO, the APEO, critical resource skill sets that they bring to the table to implement our transformation. And our StratComs team is the best in the business. Got me a room last night. Thanks, General Lawrence. Thanks, Tara. But that message they keep pushing out is really important for that culture change. One of the barriers I first saw when I got on board was educating our functionals. And with Agile, like Ms. Swanson said, it starts with the requirement. And an Agile written requirement that we can decouple and field in increments. And it starts with BPR around commercial best practices. It starts with an initial prioritized backlog, and then prioritizing those Scrum teams, executing human-centered design, reprioritizing the backlog and getting into that cadence, defining the definition of done, and executing a robust organizational change management program. This is before we deploy a system. We have roadshows, we have training, we have strategic communications. So when it does finally get pushed out, the user knows what to expect, they're excited about it, and they understand the value that it brings. And now, I really got to say our functionals are fully on board. They've really stepped up at different levels of maturity, but we're on a great trajectory to get our functionals on board for Agile. And then a final barrier that I've seen that we continue to see is the color of money. So we have one Budget Activity 8 pilot in the Army. It's defensive cyber, but we're looking to spread that across many more software programs. At any point in time, I can be doing development, buying licenses, or doing continuous modernization, 3 different colors of money. So 2 years out, I can't predict what that looks like and how that plays out. So to have a colorless appropriation really gives me the flexibility so I don't have to wait for a BTR or an ATR to process. It really allows me to do that immediately and at the end of the day respond to the threat.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Swanson, I'd like to come back to you. Underscoring all of this is data. Famous economist front page said that data is the new oil and it's driving everything. And the important thing is we talk about the data-centric army. So underlying this, we have to have the systems to be able to process, to store, to move that data. Could you just touch a little bit about the data mesh, the data transformation, and everything that kind of goes with this new oil, this new data that we're trying to bring in?
Yep, absolutely. So we embarked on building the data mesh out in May. When I got to DAS, Mr. Bang had been there for 2 months and already had like a whole list of stuff that he wanted done, and that was really first and foremost. So why we went down the path of data mesh is really, it's for a number of reasons. One, we want a distributed architecture, not an aggregated architecture, because we're the Army. So we don't have the network to have like these massive data lakes that are replicating and persisting data everywhere. We will crush the network. So we need another way. And the data mesh it is a distributed architecture that will allow us to have nodes in different places where we need them and not really just have what we need where we need it. So that's number one. Number two, eliminating vendor lock. We want competition. We want to open up the options to any solution that industry can bring that is compliant. So, and there's a few more, but I would say those are really probably the big ones. So we started building what is now known as the Unified Data Reference Architecture last year. And we told you guys we would be done by the end of this fiscal year, and we will be done by the end of this fiscal year with that architecture. So we've put out 2 RFIs to industry to really help us, right? So RFI 1 went out in December, RFI 2 went out in March with the second phase of the UDRA. And we got, I will say, especially from RFI 2, fantastic feedback from industry. And what I mean by that is you didn't all say, this is awesome. You guys actually said in many cases, this is good, but did you think about this or that? We need to implement it this way or that way. This will work, this won't work. And that's exactly what we want, because at the end of the day, this architecture is going to be required in our RFPs, and so we want to make sure that industry can comply. So RFI 3 is going to go out August 30th. And that's the last one. So that's the last phase of the architecture. It will also include some updates to previous portions of the architecture based on the feedback that we got from industry. We are going to have an industry day up at APG the first week of October. The dates are a little bit fluid right now, but it will be before AUSA, and it'll be that first week of October where we can really talk more in depth about the UDRA and where we're headed. High level, I do want to just say here, we have the Innovation Exchange, which we're partnered with DevCom up at APG for this Innovation Exchange that is really a lab. They're building out a reference implementation of the UDRA right now for us so that we make sure, we don't want it just to be paper, we want to make sure that it works. So That's step one. Step two, in December, we will open that up to industry. It will be cloud-based. We're working on that now. And the idea is for industry to bring your solutions in and determine if they comply or not. So you'll get feedback. Feedback isn't going to go anywhere except back to you, but objectively, what we want to identify is a pool of solutions that are compliant. Hybrid cloud is going to be a part of that because we're the Army, so we will not always be connected. So cloud-only solutions are probably not going to work for. In fact, I'm not going to say probably. They're not going to work for tactical systems because we have to be able to have some on-prem hybrid clouds, whatever you want to call it, capability that we have when we're disconnected. So that's something that you guys need to be aware of. But that's really, we're very excited about it because this is going to enable true data centricity for the Army. And like I said, RFPs that go out in FY24 after we finish verifying the implementation will include this as a requirement. And then of course the PMs or PEOs are going to be the ones that are selecting those solutions, but they will have to be compliant with the UDRA. So that's what I've got.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Moving over to Mr. Kitts, from the PEO C3T Foxhole, can you talk a little bit about how your organization has continued to enable these data-centric solutions from the data mesh and the data transformation?
Yeah, small questions, huh? So first of all, I wanted to introduce myself as the PEO for C3T. I'm still C3. I'm still getting used to it myself. I'm really humbled and honored to be given the opportunity to redo a PEO here. So Mr. Bank, thanks for that. Hopefully I do you proud. I'm really excited about the future opportunity to define the future of our network. And I think when it comes to data centricity and data mesh, we have a lot of opportunities across the portfolio to get after really hard problems. And so one of the things that I'm really focused on in the early going of my time here at C3T is really shaping these future opportunities with feedback from industry. We've got really strong opportunities with defining the next generation of how we do fires in our fires community within a FATIDS Next capability. We're looking at how we do our command posts, right? Learning lessons from the Ukraine and across the environment. Joe Morrison talked about that a little bit today, not just in how we build out a hardware architecture for our command posts, but how we build out our mission command applications, how we aggregate and service data, how we build applications on top of that aggregation and service of data, I think is really, really important and an opportunity for us to define how we're gonna fight as a future Army network. A lot of the lessons I learned in my former PEO have been talked about already in terms of competitive prototyping, leveraging the use of OTAs, our software acquisition pathway. These are all things that are already having a lot of momentum at PEO C3T. Areas of focus when it comes to unified network operations, CPI2, C2 Next. These are all fantastic opportunities for industry and the government to partner to leverage a lot of the opportunities that Mr. Guckert, Ms. Sweeney, and others are talking. You're not going to hear different themes from PEO C3T in terms of leveraging those tools in order to enable sort of the future of our mission command applications and that data environment. I think Joe Morrison also talked a lot about how we're aligning our PEO, how our PEO structures are aligned. So you know, right, PEO C3T, PEO IEWS, and PEO EIS have aligned to better deliver an integrated capability, whether that's in our business systems, in our intel systems, and here in our network. And so I'm really excited about having Jay Shell and his team join C3T and about how we're going to get after an integrated network operations, an integrated delivery of ICAM, an integrated delivery over time of how we're going to do our upper tier, our lower tier, and our enterprise capability as a holistic network, delivering a holistic network. So the Army didn't give me a small job here, right? And so I'm fully aware of that. I'm also fully aware that I'm 3 weeks into the job. And so I'm really, really looking forward to partnering with you, on the government industry side, learning as I go, and really, I couldn't be more excited about defining of the future of the Army network. I think it's a fantastic time to be at C3T. I'm really, really humbled and honored to be a part of the team defining that data-centric environment, and I'm really looking forward to your questions. Thanks, Dave.
Yes. To follow up on that, sir, the Army has to do that at echelon. It's sometimes challenging at echelon, sometimes in very austere environments. How are you getting after that problem of delivering that network at echelon?
Yeah, and I think, Ms. Swanson sort of talked about this hybrid cloud strategy. I think one of the lessons we're learning is we can't promulgate these large footprint command posts. We can't be delivering significant server capabilities to our command post. So how do we leverage the network paths and the network diversity that we have? And I think adopting sort of a cloud-first strategy, understanding that we can deliver these applications via a cloud as our first strategy rather than our fallback strategy or in case the network is there strategy, will allow us to aggregate and service data in a really robust way. And I think it will also provide us sort of that data diversity, right? That data mesh, so that we're not just servicing data via a local instance, we're servicing data in a much more distributed way. And so I think partnered with industry over the next year or so, we're going to look at how we deliver that network and how we deliver our applications in a cloud environment, and what options and diversity does that offer our network infrastructure. I'm really excited about that opportunity. I think once we get to that, then we can start talking about these really interesting applications that we could put on top of that data, and then how those applications can get pushed down echelon. I think it's a real great opportunity. I know we're partnered with Joe Welch at C5ISR on a lot of these technologies, and I'm really, really excited about sort of the potential of a cloud-first strategy and the types of applications that you all can deliver us once we get to that diverse data environment. Thanks, Dave.
Yes, sir. On that, we're going to have to get after data-centric armor, we're going to have to look at data at scale. Maybe not the entire scale. I think Mr. Bang coined the word data diet here just a little bit ago, which I'm really excited to see what ChatGPT defines that at later tonight. But regardless of whether we're doing a data diet, it's still going to be data at a massive scale. How are we going to tackle that with the echelon that you just described?
Yeah, and I think we've all sort of, I grew up as an engineer talking about, mission command, intelligence, convergence, and we talked about sort of utopic data stores where one data store was going to service out everybody. I'm certainly not believing in some sort of panacea or utopia of one application to rule them all, right? This is going to be a diverse data environment. We are always going to live, we as an Army are always going to fight in this diverse environment of legacy applications, future applications, and how that data gets serviced to our end users is always going to be a really complicated environment. We have to embrace that. And I think one of the ways that we embrace that was talked about by Mr. Guckert, which is how do we structure our programs to embrace the volatility of our requirements? And Agile is a fantastic way for us to do that. To understand that legacy applications are going to coexist with the future, our Army 2030 applications. To understand that we are always going to be servicing data in a very diverse way. There is always going to be a new threat or a new application that Intel is going to deliver. How do we embrace sort of that volatility? One of the ways we can structure programs in order to do that is to leverage the Agile methodologies that we've talked about. And I think that that underpins everything that we do in our acquisition business, is that we have to build flexible and really flexible programs that can get after that future volatility. And I'm really looking forward to doing that in our network. I think it's a really strong litmus test for us to get after the volatility of our requirements. And I'm really interested to partner with our industry teams to do that. Thanks, Dave.
Great, thank you. General Barker, we're going to pivot to you for a couple questions here. First, a number of the sensors we have are conducting PED, or process and exploitation and dissemination, trying to leverage the AI and ML to get after a number of different things. How are you tackling kind of the associated costs and the different kinds of efficiencies that we need in those programs to tackle doing PED at the scale we have with as many sensors as we now have in our Army to get after answering the questions our leaders have.
Yeah, great, thanks Dave. First off, thanks for the opportunity, this is awesome. First time being at TechNet, so truly love the event. My boss here to my former boss to my left, we swapped out, I think it was June 29th, he took over the PEO, got a fresh start. I, on the other hand, had 2 years of culpability since I was the deputy from day one.
Just blame it on the other guy.
So I know. Nick Sachs, they're doing that to me now. Like, Nick, you're way better than the new guy, or the old guy. So, no. But in all honesty, about a year ago, Mark and, as we were kind of looking at the imperatives set forth by the Secretary when it came to deep sensing, and also the priorities from a data-centric Army, we knew that we had to get at this problem. Several of our programs, either directly or implied, had AI and ML requirements. What we also knew was that from an affordability standpoint and from a quality and trust aspect, of the machine learning models, we knew that we just couldn't have everybody doing their own thing. All right, so we had an opportunity with Titan, and we looked at it as an opportunity to really build out an AI and ML pipeline that could support everything from targeting to situational awareness to situational understanding, all from an MDO standpoint. And really, what was the potential to rapidly and continuously deliver, high-performing AI capabilities. So we kicked off Linchpin. We didn't necessarily know how to tackle it. So the first instinct was to reach out to industry and all of our partners and start trying to figure this out and understand what was in the art of the possible. So starting last fall through a series, literally hundreds of industry engagements, one-on-one industry engagements, several RFIs, several briefing sessions. We slowly started to garner what it might mean to establish that pipeline. And we knew we had to do it simply because, for one, the affordability aspect. So this proved to be the perfect opportunity to demonstrate this with Titan. And then we also know that it can also be proliferated potentially to other efforts within the portfolio, like a terrestrial layer sensor or the multi-domain sensor system. And then ideally, if successful, the model could also be used by other PEOs. So that's when we presented it to Mr. Bang, and everybody's been excited about it, and because the potential is there to do this, and it is moving fast. It is moving incredibly fast. And to speak to your efficiency portion of it as well, this has been a perfect example of when something didn't necessarily exist or the approach didn't exist, but we knew that others were doing things similar in the space. So specifically AI2C at AFC, ARL, and CDAO at OSD. So as we kind of reached out, not only to our industry partners, trying to understand, what would be the best of breed approach, or how we could tackle it, but we're also reaching out to these other organizations. And, through the help of AI2C and CDAO, we've identified a lot of efficiencies where they can do some heavy lifting on the data labeling as an example. AI2C is helping provide us with data scientists. And in the end, what it's doing, it's really, kind of closing the gap on what the PM really needs to do and focus on, because he has expertise from other elements of the government that have a vested interest in us succeeding. So we've taken advantage of that, and we've leveraged those partnerships because everybody wants to see this thing do well. And then what it's also done is, as we kind of programmed in the out years from a resourcing standpoint, for FY26 is when it's supposed to start from a programmatic standpoint. By that type of collaboration, and both with industry as well as our other government partners, we firmly believe that we're going to be able to bring things to the left significantly, to the point where we'll probably have program initiation by the end of this calendar year. So, and we're very excited about that. So we're going to continue to look to industry to make sure that, as we go throughout this process through a series of RFIs and then smaller RFPs, trying to tackle certain problems like how do we assess things, how do we know that we have the right traceability, observability, replaceability, and consumability throughout that process. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Things are moving fast, and we're looking forward to the continued partnerships.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
So I was just, 2 weeks ago, I was supporting the Army Science Board with a group of cadets that were looking at how does generative AI impact the Army. We had a chance to brief Mr. Bush and Mr. Bang. He told me to come talk to you about linchpin, so I can now check that off the to-do list. So speaking of linchpin, one of the things that was discussed a little bit earlier as well is this, getting after this AI bill of materials or the data bill of materials, or understanding the openness of what's behind some of these models that may, while not necessarily completely black boxes, they're sure pretty opaque to a lot of us. How does linchpin help open that up and have us be able to see those models and the data and that's behind these?
So I kind of hit on it there at the end. We're looking to measure and evaluate based on torque, or torc. So that traceability, right, and understanding really the provenance, the origins, where things were developed, who the owner was, the location, if there's been changes to the hardware. I mean, just really the understanding both the internal and external aspects of the traceability, and really trust, right, is what that boils down to. And then, the other part of that is the observability. Having the transparency to see all aspects, of how that tool was brought into the pipeline, and being able to look back, to the traceability, and then replaceability as well. I mean, any single component should be able to be pulled out at any time within the model, and if there's a next best of breed, we want to make sure that we have the option to do that. So. So there's challenges that we got to tackle with that, from an IP standpoint, from a tools and different portions of the model, and then the consumability aspect of it too. I mean, can the users use this? I mean, as it goes through the pipeline, any type of conditioning is applied, the model is then brought back into their environment. Can they still use it? That is the key. And then the other part to this is, this is really kind of the first time people are doing this to this degree, we believe, on our end at least. So we got to figure out how to measure that. Are there metrics that we can apply to the effectiveness of traceability, observability, and what that means? And that's how we're going to really hold everyone accountable when it comes to, are they meeting those standards? And then the other part of that is, how do you test this, right? How do you test something along those lines? So we're going to continue to work with our partners at ATEC and DOT&E to figure out a path to that, because it's really important that we got to tackle that problem.
Yes, sir. Close friends working at ATEC on that problem. I've had coffee and discussed it with them. It's a challenging problem of figuring out how to test this. So. Yeah. Ms. Swanson, I'd like to come back because we talk about, we've touched on some of the cultural things, but all of this technology is not going to work unless it has some both training, adoption, and there's a human aspect to all of this. And unless the humans grab it and run with it, it's not going to be successful. So what are we doing to train and to prepare our formations for this technology?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I did when I got to ASALT was really embark on developing, I would say, a quick and dirty upskilling curriculum. So we leveraged online tools like Udemy to pull together tracks, essentially, for all the different digital transformation efforts. And that was it was a quick solution. That was not, it is not the final solution, but it was something that we needed to be able to get out, because to your point, a lot of our folks don't even understand what these terms are. And so we wanted to make something available that wasn't just for the STEM people, but really for everybody, some kind of digital foundation, digital transformation foundation curriculum. So we did that. We then started to develop role-based training, which will get after more details based on your job. So the software architect needs something different than the PM, than the budget person, than the contracts person, but they all need some level of understanding of what this means generally, and then what this means in their space. So we're building that out now. And we are looking to add in 24 a hands-on component to that, because I'm a firm believer that online is okay, and you can, if you have the attention span, you can learn some stuff. But if you don't really have the capability to at least try things out, and when I say hands-on, I mean some of it will be hands-on online because some of these tools provide those capabilities, but at least the ability to try some things out and play with things so that it kind of sticks in your head. So we're moving down that path. But I think the biggest thing is really what Ross said, which was really smart, Ross. When our people see programs and successes and things that are working well because we did X or Y, that's really where culture changes, right? So we are certainly working hard to elevate our people and give them all kinds of opportunities and upskilling, et cetera, but it's really kind of where the rubber meets the road, I think, is when we start seeing the successes, which in some cases we have. And I think 24 will bring many more of those to where people's eyes open and they're like, okay, I get it. I understand why this is really important.
Okay. Ms. Saunders, to build on that, how is PEO STRI, what are the capabilities you're building to enable this training and empowering the community, the Army soldiers, the formations, to use this technology to accomplish the very tough mission that our nation's given us?
That's a great question, thank you. So we all know the Secretary and the Chief's priorities are people, modernization, and readiness. And then as that flows down to the Army Digital Transformation Strategy, the three objectives are readiness and modernization, reform, and people and partnerships. The approach I've taken at PEO STRI, and we did this about 10 months ago, I held an industry day, a day-long industry day, where we whiteboarded where does PEO STRI need to go in our digital transformation. And so we came up with 5 focus areas, 5 tenets, if you will, and I'll talk about each of them. But they're people, processes, organization, culture, and technology. And each of my fellow PEOs and Ms. Swanson have talked about each of these, but I'll talk a little bit specifically to PEO STRI. So first, people. In the last couple of years, I've stood up a talent management office, and this office is focused on assessing, training, and retaining our workforce. So my office, my talent management office, looks at the full life cycle of our acquisition professionals coming in, and we tailor training to include all the digital transformation tools like software agile development or model-based systems engineering. So we make sure that our workforce is trained. We've stood up an acquisition academy apprentice program. It is our method of assessing in our new workforce. We're about ready to kick off our third cohort. There you go, cohort. It's all in the enunciation. And we bring in anywhere from about 15 to 20 students. These can be civilians that are reclassing or they're brand new civilians off the street. The last cohort we had a couple of Marine Corps as well as a couple of our partner ACC Orlando members. But in that Acquisition Academy, which is it is 11 weeks long, we are inculcating digital transformation principles into this curriculum. And then those students, as they graduate, will go to a PM shop 1 year at a time for 3 years to work on programs at different stages of the life cycle. Another thing that we focus on in this Acquisition Academy is we have all functional areas. So we have PMs, engineers, logisticians, cost analysts. So we get a full flavor. It helps with all the end-of-year projects, but also as they graduate and go within my workforce, they've got somebody that they can call up. Ms. Swanson talked about upskill training. We're ensuring that our workforce is taking advantage of that. And then separately, we're doing Scrum training, and we're doing it about once a quarter. And we've just started bringing in our requirements owners. I have 2 main requirements owners. One is in Orlando, where I am. It's the Synthetic Training Environments cross-functional team, and the other one is at Fort Leavenworth, and that's the Combined Arms Center training. So we are bringing them in and doing Scrum training with our PM teams. I think you mentioned that Agile is definitely a team sport. And Ms. Swanson is working both with the requirements community as well as the test community. So we're bringing them in so they understand what it means to develop in an agile manner. As we move on to processes, we're institutionalizing agile software development methodologies across the PEOs, focused on our modernization programs. And we are instilling digital engineering principles across the workforce. We're leveraging to the maximum amount the different pathways in the acquisition adaptive framework. And in fact, I have 7 programs that are either in software acquisition pathway or in MTA. And then Ms. Swanson, to your point about working with the requirements community, we work very closely with the STE CFT, and we have the very first software ICD that's actually in Army staffing right now. My focus is to get it approved. We're doing a parallel AROC, JROC. I wanted to get it approved so I can POM for the next POM cycle. So it's a little bit selfish, but outstanding work by my PM shop and the STE CFT. Another thing that we're doing is in our digital transformation process, and I'll talk about organization in just a minute, we're standing up a governance process which will include all my leaders, my PMs within the PEO, so that we all understand the direction that we're going. From an organization standpoint, and this gets to your comment, Mr. Guckert, when people start to see change, and it's not only internally, but it's externally, they start believing something's going to happen. So I've stood up an 06 level project lead shop called Unite. It's called Unified Integration and Transformation Enterprise, and that PM shop will be building our enterprise architecture. PEO STRI has traditionally had stovepipe product line architectures across our live, virtual, and constructive domains, and we're collapsing those into a single enterprise product management shop. Another office I have focused on agile acquisition, if you will, is our STAR office. It's the STRI Adaptive Acquisition Response Team. And this office is focused on looking at technologies that we can spin out into our programs. And a perfect example, and this is I think a good example of industry seeing change, is we've been working with STAR on the synthetic training live domain. We have spun out 5 technologies now, all focused on indirect fire, which is a gap in Army training today. So we've spun out grenades, claymores, 60 and 81 millimeter mortars, and Stinger. We've actually done an integration event in the last 2 weeks, and we'll be fielding that Increment 1 STE live capability by third quarter of FY24. So STAR focused on identifying technologies, we spin it out into a program office, get it integrated into current baseline, and we're able to address a training gap. So that is huge. I'm leveraging my partnerships with our foreign allies, with our modeling infrastructure, sustainment for training group, and we're sharing ideas and looking for capabilities that we can cross-share. And in fact, with the UK, we'll be leveraging a large indirect fire system soon. We're leveraging industry standards, CISO, Simulation Interoperability Standards Organization, as well as NATO standards within our infrastructure. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is culture. And we've already, 3 of us have already said change within, but it's also change outside looking in, specifically with industry. And so we are rebranding. We've tweaked our mission and our vision and our motto, but we're rebranding to show that we are evolving into the future to be able to produce that Army materiality, is that the right word, in 2030, but also focused on designing the Army for 24. And then we're taking an introspective look at ourselves and measuring ourselves to see how MOSA we are. We've set up a knowledge repository and using all of our engineering artifacts that we use in our simulation models to house there for our teams to leverage, and then all the playbooks that Ms. Swanson is leveraging or is building will include that as well. And then the last thing is technology. At PEO Stri, we have multiple technology areas that we're looking at, but adopting cloud native technologies is huge for us. Working with industry on AR, VR, game technology, AI, ML tools to help with automated decision making, and then leveraging our own infrastructure with respect to our MOSA, as well as our platform development kits, which allow industry, more competition for industry to be able to offer up new technologies that we can consider for integration. I think I probably covered more than you asked, but I think you also wanted me to talk about challenges, right?
I do. Real quick before you do, in just a second we are going to transition to questions. So I just want to prod the audience. We're going to have a number of questions you can ask to all the acquisition leaders we have up here. There should be an email. I believe it's on screen. If not, I could ask that they put that up there. But please have your questions coming in so that we can kind of tackle some of the questions that you have in just a moment here. But I do want to ask you, that was a lot. I'm sure there's some challenges in there. Could you just highlight what are your challenges as you tackle all of that?
So, well, the question was about people, right? And so people are a challenge. We are fighting for competition. Where my organization is, both in Orlando and Huntsville, we're competing with industry, we're competing with Disney. Up in Huntsville, we're competing with some of my fellow PEOs, with NASA, with the FBI. And so I think that's a challenge, is being able to assess and not so much train, but retain the talent. That is huge. And so we look to, there's many tools that PEOs have for incentive retentions for our workforce. But I think what gets our workforce to stay is the mission, right? The impact that they have on soldiers training. So that is key. Another challenge I see, and as we are actually executing digital transformation, it's not just the acquisition domain, acquisition community. It's requirements, it's testing, it's costing, and it's contracting. That's all been said before, but it's truly a team sport. And then probably the third one would be building in cybersecurity and zero trust into the acquisition life cycle from the beginning. I think traditionally it's kind of been maybe a strap-on at the end, but taking the principles and so you've got to have the right talent on your team to build in cybersecurity early.
Thank you. And as you do this for your organization, this digital transformation, and more broadly for the Army, what is the benefits that you see that you're tangibly trying to achieve?
I think first and foremost, through digital transformation, we will be able to deliver better capability to soldiers earlier. Because we built an infrastructure, it's an agile development process. We'll be able to deliver capability to soldiers earlier. I think it'll improve our decision-making process. I think it forces enhanced collaboration across, whether it's with my fellow PEOs or with my requirements owners or my testers. So.
Okay. Thank you. And what I'm going to do is real quick before we transition to questions, I'm going to just open up for the whole panel, starting with Ms. Saunders, for any final comments for the audience here as we kind of close out and transition to questions. So if you had any closing comments to summarize or to go through, I'll just start with you.
No, I'm very excited to be the PEO for STRI. My organization is doing phenomenal things for the Army, and I think that the support we have from the Army staff and our ASALT leadership are really enabling the PEOs to be able to move forward so that we can do what I said before, is provide better capability earlier.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Kitts?
Yeah, I want to build on something you said because it's really important. We, as an entire community, have to execute our mission with talented people. Whether that's industry, government partners, academia, stimulating talented people to our Army business, whether they're in the uniform or not, is critical not just to the success of the people up here on this stage, but to everyone in this room. And so I know I speak on behalf of the Army, how we retain and recruit that talent is something that I am very interested in talking to industry about. Because it's not just about people that work at this PEO or his PEO or her PEO. It's about how we get people in the business of making the Army a fantastic place to win our next wars. And so I want to be very clear that if there are things that we can do smarter in terms of retaining and recruiting talent in our community, I sign me up, right? And so I think that's really important. Thank you for highlighting that, and I think it's really important for us as an entire community. Dave, thanks. That's all I got.
Sir.
So again, thank you. Great opportunity. We've hit on a lot up here with regard to culture, agility training, and that's two of the centerpieces of our PEO right now. Is really, developing the organizational agility to respond to a dynamic environment, right? And that includes both from a process standpoint, training. I mean, you can't just say you're going to do Agile. You can't just say you're going to do DevSecOps. You have to build the culture that will allow for that, and you have to make sure that people are trained and you have the right talent. And so there's so many of these common themes here that we have. But in the end, it goes back to we're gonna tackle the problem. Okay, we're gonna get to what the Army needs. It's a range of partnerships to include our counterparts in the government as well as our industry partner and our foreign nations. So it's important that we got to do this together and keep rowing together. So
yes, sir. So, Mr. Barker.
If you know me, you know the importance I place on the partnership with industry. So we don't put out an RFP until it's been put out in draft form many times, have an industry day, one-on-one discussions, and we use that input to inform our strategies. And we expect, as we go on this transformational journey, to industry to be on board, to organize around Agile, to show us the best practices, get your thoughts on what the best contracting strategy is. So truly a key partner in this journey. And then I'm going to steal Karen's line. Actually, she stole mine. I got it written down. Better quality product faster. That's what Agile does, and that's what we've been proving time and again. And so we're really excited about this transformation we're on in our partnership with industry.
Ms. Swanson?
Yep, so I've been in the acquisition community for a long time. I will not tell you how long, but a long time. And I can honestly say this is the first time that I'm aware of that out of ASALT headquarters, we are giving our PEOs things to build into. Architectures, technical guidance, and it's because of Mr. Bang's leadership that we're able to do that. But it's important because I want it to kind of all come together in your head so that it doesn't sound like, well, she's saying this and they're saying this. It's all one thing, right? So the things that we're doing at ASALT headquarters, you're going to see translating into RFPs that the PMs and PEOs are putting out. And the most critical thing of all is we can't do it without industry. So all of the things that we are setting out to do and telling you, we're being as transparent as we know how to be to make sure that you know what we're looking for. We need your solutions to be able to enable that, right? To comply with all of the modern software, data. We didn't talk about digital engineering, but that too. All of those tenets that we are building out for our POs and PMs. So If you guys have questions, please ask. If you want information, we will give you whatever information we can give you. We give it to everybody because, like I said, it's important for us to make sure that the solutions are there when we need them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll have just roughly 20 minutes to answer some questions, and I believe some folks are going to serve up some of the digital questions that will be given to us here.
And speaking of Mr. Bang, Rank has his privileges, so he gets the first question. It's for Mark Kitts. What are you going to call your PEO, since it is not just tactical anymore? It includes enterprise too.
This is a trick question. He already has the name picked out. Only thing I will say is I am humbled to be a part of PEO C3T. There are a lot of civilians, contractors, people that have supported that PEO that have a lot of pride in the work that PEO C3T has done. So we are going to take a deliberate approach to renaming that PEO so that we retain the legacy, the esprit de corps of being a part of that team. You know, we're really excited about Jay and his team joining. You know, the other parts of the team. You know, we're gonna continue the great tradition of PEO C3T and find the right name for that team that honors the tradition of C3T. So thanks for the question, sir. And I know you have a name picked out already, and I got you.
Who is going to take the lead for Army and Joint Services to ensure the data is structured, can be integrated across enterprise and tactical data sets?
So I'll take a stab at that. So I am leading for ASALT in terms of working with the joint community, OSD, to determine how UDRA and JADC2 and joint connections, I'll say, really become one thing. What I will say is OSD is very interested and has been for some time, in particular CDAO, in the data mesh concept, because the services all have the same challenge. We all don't have these big, huge networks that we can rely on all the time. So it's something that makes sense. And so we're working closely. There's been a lot of conversations, and there are some more that are scheduled in next week and then again in September. So that's me. Anybody else want to comment on?
I think it's important to realize that we all have different lanes in which we operate in. And so from a modeling and simulation, training and testing perspective, I will input into the UDRA the stuff that's in my lane, just as Mr. Kitts, and I don't know what the new name is, so I'm going to say C3T, as he's providing the command and control information, which I need because I stimulate the C2 systems. So we'll all have our own layers, if you will, within this data mesh to contribute to. And I think the Army is probably more advanced than the other services in many of these areas, particularly in training, modeling and simulation and training.
And I can't help myself. John Barker told me I was going to talk during every question, so maybe I will.
I did an over-under, actually.
You did an over-under? Yeah. The data is always going to be a wild place, right? Yeah. I think what's fantastic is you have a governmental-wide and Army-wide focus on defining how you're going to present that data, right? So UDRA is just going to give us a quantitative measure of how open and how well you defined your data. It's no longer going to be just on paper in your proposal. That's a really powerful thing for a PEO. Being able to hold industry accountable to those open APIs and their way that they present data to this wild environment. I think that's really important because we have to embrace the fact that it's always going to be a wild environment. And so how we define it, how we present the data, and how we allow industry or this heterogeneous environment to operate on top of our data, that's what I think is really exciting.
And I think Mr. Bang touched on the unstructured, structured data piece earlier in his remarks it's about the governance piece, right? There's going to be data owners, data stewards, they own that data, but I don't like to use the word standard, but there's going to be something they need to comply with to put their data products into the service catalog, and then we soon to be C3, push out an ICAM solution that authenticates, has role-based, attribute-based, so whoever comes into the network has access to what they need, but also doesn't get access to what they don't need.
How can the PEOs better leverage National Guard and Reserve soldiers that work in industry?
So I think we have to know about them, right? I think it's about communication. And so at my PEO, I have a conduit through the FA-57 branch where, and these are simulation operations officers that are also National Guard and Reserve, who will come to me and talk to me about the talent within those ranks. And so for me, it's kind of a bottoms up. I don't know if there's anything that's kind of top down, but you have to know what's available, the resource that's available to you. So mine right now is really kind of grassroots, people within my field coming to us or coming to me, offering up skill sets.
To some extent, I think at the centralized, I want to just comment that the 75th Innovation Command and General Klein and all that he's done there for sure is probably a more centralized approach too as well. It's a great resource.
Given that some research organizations, such as Gartner, predict data mesh as a precursor to a more centralized data fabric, how will you mitigate the risk of organizations interpreting the decentralization aspect of data mesh as an excuse to remain siloed or decentralized in the long term?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, but data mesh really is the opposite of the silos. So the way we mitigate that is by requiring it in RFPs, and if you're not compliant with the UDRA, you're not going to win. And so if you're compliant with the UDRA, you are not going to be siloed by definition. One of the things that we are doing is building the UDRA into a digital model and also building the digital framework to evaluate. And so what we're gonna do with that is it will go out via digital model. It'll go out both ways. It'll go out paper and digital for RFPs, but we want the proposal back digitally so that we can use the framework to evaluate against the solution, because that's another thing that I think is new, I know is new, is there are many RFPs that I'm sure anybody could point to and say, oh, you said we have to comply with this MOSA thing and that MOSA thing and this architecture and that architecture, but there was never a way to really evaluate it because you just can't do that on paper. It's not possible, and I would argue that probably some of those things conflicted with each other because we didn't know. So digital engineering does open up a lot of avenues in terms of really narrowing down what does compliance mean. And so we mitigate it by requiring that. And like I said, if you're not compliant with UDRA, then you're not going to be part of the solution. But if you are compliant with UDRA, then you are not siloed. Hopefully that helps.
And I'd also say that, like the work we're doing on Lynchpin with Torsi, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a we're being very open about how we're going to look at things and how we're going to evaluate things. And you're either compliant or you meet the measurements or you don't. Same thing with the integrated sensor architecture. You're either compliant or you're not. It's very straightforward.
Yep. Yeah, and to build on that, I think it's important, and Mr. Bang touched on it as well in his keynote. The UDRA, what you just talked about in terms of linchpin and torque, is an example of where we're going, which is defining the interfaces. So again, we're not interested in the IP for the box or the solution. That is industry's IP. We completely respect that. But we do want to be able to plug and play things so that we're not siloed. And so when you have those interfaces built out, and you guys know what to build into, and our PMs know what to ask for, it becomes much, much easier to really break the silos completely, because there may very well be solutions that can apply to multiple problems, right? Right now it's the way we've operated for a long time, that we put everything out in silos, and so what we get back is silos, but you're gonna see that changing.
How can industry find problems and challenges to bring capabilities to STAR? And that question is for Ms. Saunders, obviously.
Can you repeat it?
How can industry find problems and challenges to bring capabilities to STAR?
So right now, STAR is focused on STE Live, and so about every quarter we're releasing OTAs focused on a different problem set within the live training domain, whether it's direct fire, indirect fire, counter defilade, drop bombs, CBRN. So I would say we put all of our stuff out on sam.gov, and so you can come to our PALT sessions every month. You can look on sam.gov. You can contact me, and I'm more than happy to talk to you about what we're doing. Contact the lead for STAR. There's multiple different ways to find out what we're focusing on for the next installation of a soldier touch point.
I think all of us do that too, right? I mean, across the board, a lot of us have those PALT and alt days. I know we do a standing one monthly, and then we do either a live or a virtual one every quarter. So there's a lot of opportunities. If you look at, on Lynchpin, for example, the partnership with CDAO, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities on trade winds, looking at what they're doing from an AI data platform. So there's a lot of information out there regarding what's in the pipeline. No pun intended.
Please describe the approach your organization uses to effectively inform industry IR&D in the fast-moving Agile environment, and how the approach aligns industry development with the government's evolving programs/requirements.
Well, and I would be very candid and say it's a PEO's job to engage with industry in a robust way. We each have the tools that we use. I know I have full open door. I'll take 30 minutes with any industry partner at any time. We have alt days. I know PEO Strive. When I was at IEWS, we stole PEO Strive's model for alt days, right? And so we are all trying to engage with industry. I think there's a two-way street, right? Like, my door's always open, but you got to walk through it, right? You got to be candid, and you got to be honest with me. And so I think a very loaded question, but I think I would say it is a PEO's job to robustly engage with industry and hold us certainly hold me accountable to do that at C3T.
I agree with you, Mr. Kitts, but I also think that the 06 PMs and the 05 product managers who are actually delivering the capability should also be very engaged with industry, because they're kind of at the tip with their functionals, knowing what's going to happen next. So not only the PEOs, that kind of gets you in the door, but talking to the 06 PMs and the 05 project directors, I think, is key as well. And engineers, talk to the engineers too.
Yep. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's a collective effort. It's not just the PEM's role to help influence IRAD investments, right? There's the capability managers, or in our case, the functionals, that are writing requirements, are going to write requirements, that really kind of have an idea of what's coming down the pike, what's the gaps that they're writing the requirements against. So I think that's informative. Then I think there's today a lot of implied requirements, RPAs, AI, ML, that we'll be looking for as we implement EBSC, for instance. What kind of tools can we use that are going to help us streamline that process and put 21st century solutions in the battlefield?
Yeah, so we also, I do a lot of industry engagements as well. We want to influence your IR&D, like I said before. I mean, that's why, we're being completely transparent, and have been for really the last year, in terms of where we're going, what we're doing. Help us with the unified data reference architecture as an example, so that we can make sure that there are solutions out there that comply. What is helpful, though, also to Mark's point, in terms of, the two-way door, is tell us if you're not interested. I'm okay with that. I think we spend sometimes a lot of time where it seems like the solution that's being brought to the table is really not at all what we're looking for. And that's fine. That's a business decision, and that is 100% okay. But I think it helps all of us if we just kind of understand, hey, this company is interested in moving forward with whatever the solution needs to be, and this other one is not. And that's not a cookie cutter. I think there are solutions for different things. It's not, I think, again, those are business decisions that companies need to make. But I definitely appreciate the two-way door and the honesty in the discussions.
What is being done to change acquisition policy to address moving to Agile? Policy and directives today follow more of a waterfall acquisition process.
So I'll take a stab at that. I've been working with Margaret Boatner, who's DASSR, for the better part of the last year, fixing old policies. So a lot of the efforts that we have going on with the PEOs right now, the Pathfinders, where we are using those to find obstacles, translate to policies that need to be updated. And we have updated several and are working on a directive that will be hopefully signed out by the secretary. She hasn't seen it, so I say hopefully because it's a work in progress. But the directive aims at putting in all of the things that we need to get done across the entire Army to enable CI/CD. And if she signs it, then that will be something that then the trickle-down effect is all policies that conflict with that get automatically updated, because it's hard to find all the policies, to be honest with you. A PM will be like, hey, did you know about this one? Nope, did not know. So we're finding them as we go, and we're updating the ones that we are aware of, but there are probably ones that we're missing, and so that's our path forward with that.
I would tell you, though, it's not just acquisition policy to be agile.
Oh, yeah, all policies. Yes.
It's not just
absolutely.
Because, what we're getting out of the headquarters from an ASALT standpoint, the authorities that we have from Congress in the form of OTAs and mid-tiers, that has provided us a lot of agility, okay? And one of my observations is that based on those authorities, and we're able to move pretty quick. The technology aspect of things can move fast. The challenge a lot of times becomes we have the potential to move so fast that when you look at the rest of the institution from a .mlpf standpoint, they don't always have the capacity to keep up and make changes. Whether it's how do you address the new opportunities from a training standpoint, how do you address the new opportunities from a force structure standpoint, all of those things don't happen quickly. So it's more of a holistic approach you got to take to tackle it, because if you just strictly look at the technology aspect of things, that can actually move pretty fast.
Sometimes we're our worst enemy. We don't take advantage of the authorities we already have. And the software acquisition pathway is a great example. That's allowing us to move very fast in an agile fashion. But two things that stick out to me, we've talked about it today, is continuous ATO, getting that completed and getting that on the books so we don't have to continue to go back and ask for an ATO. Yep. And the color of money for software development, I think. And I know ASALT is all over that, trying to fix that and generate more pilots. And I think that will give us a lot more latitude as well.
This will be the last question. Will there be a contracting opportunity related to SBOMs as a follow-on to the RFI that was released a few months ago, or will SBOMs eventually just become a requirement included in future RFP?
Yes. So they are going to become required as part of future RFPs, that's for sure. We are working on an SBOM as a service capability, which will require tools. So how we go about doing that, we're still working through. But effectively, what we don't want to do is say, give us all your SBOMs, and then what? We need to make sure we understand what we're doing with them. So today, we built a repository where those SBOMs can go, and we can query those SBOMs within that repository. to look for vulnerabilities and those types of things. Where we want to go with SBOM as a service, what we're putting into place right now is a capability where we have that, but it's all automated, plus critically we have the provenance of the software. And you do need tools to be able to get after that. And we also, currently we are able to generate SBOMs ourselves to kind of make sure that what we're getting matches what we think we should be getting. But there's a lot more that we can do that we want to include in that SBOM as a service capability. So TBD on exactly when or what that looks like, but we do need something like that to be able to leverage the power of the SBOMs.
That was our final question for the panel. Please welcome General Fredenberg back to the stage.
All right, thank you very much. I'll tell you, it's been a journey today, and it's been exciting. I just want to take you through just a couple of highlights of this journey. We started the day with Major General Stanton charging the whole community of practitioners in the IW, the cyber, and the communications communities come together with industry and academia and work to deliver a data-centric capabilities along that path of continuous transformation. And we highlighted it again here in the panel, but General Brito emphasized the importance of aligning the people, the equipment, and the training across the force to achieve that data-centric overmatch needed for the current and the future operating environment and the changing character of war. Lieutenant General Morrison relayed a story which is still in progress of how the Army is delivering a unified network based on zero trust. They've aligned the prioritization of capabilities and resources to match those priorities. They've unified networking requirements process, requirements for the network. They've unified to one central PEO for the delivery of those capabilities, and they are consolidating to that one Army service provider in our cyber. And Mr. Young Bang walked us through the Odyssey journey to deliver these data-centric capabilities from the acquisition standpoint. And this panel expanded in even more detail on that journey and how they're executing that currently today. Phenomenal day, and if you did not take several tasks out of these sessions that we had today, then you're absolutely wrong, because we need all of you engaged. And I heard this panel mention it several times. It's going to take this entire community to bring this capability together for our Army. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, Lieutenant Colonel Beskow, and the entire panel for joining us today. Phenomenal conversation. We appreciate the direct engagement with industry and how you're reaching out and bringing the strength of our nation together to deliver these capabilities. In lieu of a speaker gift, FC is going to make a donation to the Fort Gordon Historical Museum Society on your behalf. And if I could just conclude real quickly with a couple of admin notes. There's a networking reception, which I know is all very important to you all, taking place in the exhibit hall right now, sponsored by Comcast Business and Sonic Wall. So I hope you join us downstairs for snacks, drinks, and conversation with your fellow attendees and continue the discussion that we just ended here. We're going to get started tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So if you think day one was exciting, get some rest tonight and buckle up. We'll be back here at 7 o'clock to charge you up full of coffee from Pega Systems. And then at 8 o'clock, there's going to be several breakouts along the river hallway right behind us here. And the next session here in this room is going to be Lieutenant General Bob Skinner, which begins at 9:15. So thank you very much for your attendance today. I will see you at the reception.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. Please remember that many of today's breakout sessions have been approved for continuing education. Consult the conference app for the latest lists of sessions, and as a reminder, documentation of your attendance at these sessions is a benefit of FCM membership. If you're not a member, you can sign up for membership at a special discounted on-site rate at booth 123 in the exhibit hall.